okay?
All right, hi everybody. This is Patrick King, your science fiction and fantasy selector here at the Poison Pen, and I am very excited. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us tonight and future YouTube and Facebook Live video viewers. We're very excited to have Tom Leveen, local author extraordinaire, here for his adult debut. He's been writing young adult for years, and you have just debuted your very first adult novel, OMNIHUMANS, which is really, really cool. So thank you so much for taking your time to talk with us tonight and letting us know about your book tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. It is great to be here, and I miss everybody there at the Poison Pen in person. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Absolutely. So this is really cool. This idea of yours for OMNIHUMANS had been brewing for quite a while. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of where this book came from?
Yeah, so back in high school, I started playing a role-playing game called Champions. It was part of the Hero system, and it was sort of a Marvel universe, Marvel DC comic book type of role-playing game. A lot of fun, had a great time doing that, and once I started getting into the game, I started developing the idea of taking some of that, some of the adventures that we had and turning it into a book. And at the time, I thought I was very smart and going, you know what I want to do? I want to take a comic book, but like make it a novel. Dun, dun, dun. Like no one had ever done that before.
Right.
15, made sense at the time. So I wrote, but I did. I wrote most of a novel, I think my sophomore or junior year in high school, and printed it out. This is with the old dot matrix printer of the tractor paper, that you gotta tear off.
Wasn't that one of the most satisfying parts about printing out with a dot matrix your paper was the tearing off of the edges to get them ready? Yes.
Right, and then you do a little like the origami thing. We kind of fold them over themselves. Oh, it's good stuff. Kids today don't know what they miss, but I kept that idea, and it just sort of floated around there in the back of my mind for decades, frankly, to be perfectly honest. And then within the last, 6 or 7 years, I started thinking more about it. This was after I'd already published some of my other novels and kind of wanted to get back to it. And just re-examined the characters and moved some things around and really got into it. It was a lot of fun.
That is really cool. So what character was your character in this role-playing game that you played back when you were 15? Do you remember?
Yes, one of the ones who gets killed. If we get a series spin-off, he may come back because it's comic books, so nobody's ever really dead. But the main character. Actually, no, I take that back. So there are two primary protagonists, Manic and Malachi, and it's a very noir novel. It's very dark. It's very gritty. It's kind of the difference between a film like the first X-Men movie, which is great, and then Logan, which was also great, very different, very tonally, very, very different. This is more Logan than X-Men, very dark Marvel sort of universe, if you will. And so I've got the two characters, and Manic is a jerk. He's a prejudiced jerk who really likes his job, which is basically apprehending these people called omnihumans who have some kind of supernatural powers or psychic powers, and frequently some kind of physical deformity. And he just thinks that's the greatest thing ever, is taking these guys down, whether they're guilty of anything or not. And that character is sort of an amalgamation of several characters from our game. Whereas Malachi is a guy who has sort of lost his memory. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's kind of compelled to go out into the city streets and be a vigilante, which he does for a long time. And that was actually a character I did play in the game not too terribly long ago, like within the last 10 years or so. So it's kind of fun to put those two sort of anti-heroes together and let them loose in the world.
Well, when you're playing role-playing games, it's so easy that characters really become alive. Obviously, you get really into the characters that you create and get to play as and start to... I think of role-playing as a really great way to train people to be writers and storytellers.
Absolutely. And the other thing about it, too, because we were all, theater guys, so we kind of had a storytelling element already, and that was one of the things that we focused on. But even as we aged and continued playing the game into college and beyond, the stories really did take the focus. That's where we would spend a lot of our time and energy. And the other thing that I think some parents might not understand about games like this is the level of being able to work out really sticky moral situations in a very safe environment. And we did that a lot. Now, as we were younger, we played really terrible characters. Like, these guys were not heroes at all unless they were forced into it. And then we got a little bit older and matured a little bit, and our characters became a little bit more genuinely heroic. And we put them in these really, really terrible situations because it was fun. That was part of the game. And then we had several sessions where, by the time we were done, kind of would sit back and be like, wow, like, I've never thought about situation X, whatever it is. And so that's one of the things I'm always anxious to encourage kids to play games like that, because you learn a lot about yourself and you can learn a lot about the world without having to actually experience terrible things, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, it sounds like you guys play a lot more of a sophisticated game than some of the games I've played before, because we just turned into a band of Murderhobos. So...
I'm not saying we didn't do that. We did.
Moral situation, you kill him first, ask questions later, and it may or may not work out so well. So this is exciting. This is a departure from you in a way, because of the fact that this is an adult novel. All of your characters are grown adults. You're used to writing within that kind of mindset of a young adult. So what was it like sort of changing over to writing characters that would definitely have gotten past, their adolescence?
Well, Manic hasn't. That's one of the that made him fairly easy to write, because he is so very, very immature. He doesn't realize it, but he is. So in that sense, he was a little bit simpler to kind of dive into. However, at the same time, he also has a daughter. He has a college-age daughter who sort of inadvertently starts the whole plot off in the beginning of the book. And that came a lot easier because I have kids now. They're not that old, but it was a lot easier to kind of slip into the mindset of a dad and, like, what are you prepared to do to help your kid? Like, there's not everything, absolutely everything. And that is not something I've had to deal with in teen and YA. So that was a little bit different, and it was a good opportunity too, I think, in much the way that the role-playing games allowed us as teens and young adults to work through some situations in a safe environment. Writing a book like this allowed me as a parent to work through some things, and like, oh my gosh, what would I do if X happened or Y happened? To what lengths would you go to protect your kid? And I think I answered that in the book.
So, and this is also a slight departure from you, because you are Hellworld and while sick, when you started off with Party and a little Insurrection now and then, some of your other books that have really heavily reality focused, and then you're moving into OMNIHUMANS, which is a very strong science fiction presence. What was it like sort of switching gears, moving from that, strong reality base to that science fiction base?
I mean, I think that it presented some challenges with the voice, for sure. Like, mentioning, having published primarily in young adult, that's a very different voice than publishing adult, regardless of the genre. I think we have a little bit more space. There's kind of some elbow room there to develop artwork, to develop some of the description and things like that. But in other ways, it was easier and freer, because since it's a supernatural urban fantasy setting, then I get to create the rules however I want. If you take a book like Sick, which is, technically speaking, my zombie novel, cool, but it was also contemporary. Like, it's set in a high school, it's in Phoenix, like, there's roots there, and they kind of have to obey these certain rules, right? Versus something like OMNIHUMANS, and we're dealing with fantasy now. Okay, I get to take control of that scenario, that world, and say, okay, this is legal, so to speak, and this isn't, and developing those magic systems, which was, I haven't had to do that before. Even Hellworld, which has monsters in it, was still, again, very rooted in the here and now and the reality. So one of those creatures that had within a realistic setting. So it was fun. I think in a lot of ways it was actually freeing to have a chance to develop a world like that.
That's really cool. So what sort of rules and...
Is that Paul?
That is Paul. Paul is getting very excited here. People are passing by the front door here. So sorry about that, guys. Paul. Paul.
I miss him.
All right, come on. Everybody, hi. This is Paul.
Say hello. Hey, Paul. Oh, I miss you, buddy.
He misses your coffee,
Paul
Tony.
I was going to say, Paul and I have a long-standing enmity between one another because every time I go to Sci Friday Book Club, Paul always walks on over and starts drinking my coffee. So, I miss it. I miss that fight that we always have.
That's exactly
I'm glad to see it. That makes my heart feel good.
Exactly. Well, you know, it's a small family here, and he didn't want to spend Friday night alone, so I understand that. We've got a Facebook question. Ian is going to be reading out your Facebook question.
Pat Stoge asks, how did you address world building?
Great question. Addressing it's a tough question to answer because in a lot of ways I was fairly new at it. I did try to study some of my author friends and mentors like Michael Stackpole and Jonah Cease, guys like that who've made more of a career doing world building, I think. And I think the approach was really, I'm going to say cinematic is the word that kind of comes to mind, because it was very important for me to visualize, like, if I'm going to see this on a big screen, if I'm going to show this to people, what exactly is that going to look like? How am I going to describe, like one of the first big fight scenes we have in the book is this woman who can, whose fingers stretch, like that's her big superpower. They just like stretch and she can do all kinds of crazy stuff with them. Not that big a deal. She can't, she's not Superman, but all right, kind of creepy. So the question was, how do I explain that, in a way that makes sense? And I would actually, even just thinking about it, I think the role-playing aspect came in to play there because as a role player, as a game master, dungeon master, whatever, you don't get really any prompts. Even if you're using a tabletop of some kind, it's you trying to, explain to 2, 3, 4 other people what it is that they are seeing. Am I still there? There I am. And so you build up that muscle quite a bit, I think, where you're kind of, verbally having to explain, well, this is what it looks like, and this is what it feels like, and the smell, and all that kind of stuff. So I recommend doing that kind of thing, being able to verbally tell somebody a different world and something very, unique that they're experiencing for the first time, but also the visual, having some kind of strong two-dimensional picture for me was very important, and I think it worked out. And I don't know if he's still on, but I hope I answered the question.
Yes.
We actually have a guest here, Mary Lou. She says she's here, but where are you?
I hope you didn't go to the store, Mary Lou. I tried to tell you not to go to the store.
Too late! I'm here!
Come on around, Mary Lou. Say hello.
I told you on Facebook.
Yes, but I wasn't looking. What can I say? Hi.
So yes, now you can get from the store.
It's me. See, and I all gloved up and everything, but see, I hung up as soon as you told me. So.
Oh no. Okay.
But they're gonna order for me anyway.
Exactly.
Yep. And you have an audience of one here in the store.
So.
Okay.
Technically 4.
Thank you for coming, Mary Lou.
We've got a good fan base here, and you've got such loyal readers. Was it scary branching out from some of your traditional to something completely new for you?
Absolutely. People who are the sort of diehard fans that I have came on board usually with something like Party was one of their first, maybe Zero. Some people came in with Sick. So they came into my collection, so to speak, with a certain expectation. I think that expectation will still be met, despite the fact that it is a different genre for me, because I believe that I'm still focused on character. That's my background in theater and everything. That's still where I'm going to default. I've had great conversations with some of you guys there at the store and people at the library about how different authors write, and there are authors who their thing is plot, and that's cool, and their characters kind of really don't change from book to book, and that's fine, and they sell very well. So okay, I don't know if I can do that, so I'm still going to fall. I'm going to tip toward character first and foremost. So I don't think it'll be a difficult transition for my old readers, but we'll see. I hope not.
I've got to say, your character development is so good in this book, and it is so much fun to read through and see the characters grow and change within it, that it doesn't deviate too far from your writing style, despite the fact that the genre is a little bit different from what you usually do. Although Sick is a horror novel, Hellworld has those horror elements as well to it. And then, of course, Party has stuck with me since I originally read it, oh gosh, quite a few years ago.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
exactly. So, it's really exciting to get in there and try something new. And I know that we had conversations before where you were wanting to try something new as well as a writer, feeling maybe a little bit stymied in the young adult maybe thoughts and processes.
I mean, I still, even now, I'm working on some more contemporary YA because that's where I'm comfortable, and I feel like I still have stories to tell there. But and frankly, being a part of the sci-fi group here at the Poison Pen, little plug, has been instrumental in that too. And I think I've been there. It's been over a year. I know that. Not that I read anything, but if I had, I would say that I learned a lot just listening to everybody else talk. That was one of the other things. For if we have any writers tuning in tonight, if you're not part of a book club, I would recommend doing that, because that was one of the places I got to learn the most, was not talking to publishers or editors or the writers. It was listening to readers go on about science fiction and fantasy, and just and taking notes, sometimes literally on my phone, like, wait, back up, what was that? Okay, cool, So having a group of really devoted readers in a genre, I think, was enormously helpful to do that, and I'm so fortunate to have been able to do that.
That's exactly it. Well, and the thing is that it's hard when you're working part-time, you're writing full-time, and you and your wife are raising two really wonderful children, to have a lot of extra free time, where I'm sure that, when you pick up that book at night, it quickly falls onto your head.
Yeah, it's a little tough. I'm not gonna lie. I used to write kind of all night. My wife would go to bed at 10, 11 or something like that, and I'd be up till 1 or 2 in the morning writing, which was great. And then the kids showed up, and that very quickly changed, literally overnight. That changed. And when our first child was born, there was, I want to say, a 6 or 8 month dry spell there, where there was, and I don't regret that. I'm not complaining about it. It makes sense, and I think authors need to give themselves that kind of space. I don't know if I did, but I would encourage other people to give themselves that kind of space, where nothing got done, because we're just bleary-eyed. We don't know what day it is, things like that. But as time's gone on, we've gotten into a pretty decent schedule, and I'm able to still get some good writing in, every week. Probably it's not every day like it used to be, and that's okay. That's this season, and this season will pass, and we'll get into a new one. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We have a lot of writers who, would do that. As their kids got older, they were able to get into more of a set pattern, or even going back to their writing from midnight till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, because their spouse was able to get up early, get the kids off to school, but you still got one that's still fairly young and one that's, you know, grade school age. So it's a lot going on.
It is. It is.
What's your favorite part, or what was your favorite part about writing OMNIHUMANS?
Oh man, my favorite part I think was really watching Manic in particular grow and change, because one of the sort of rules that I like to use, I learned this in theater class, you know, decades ago, was in a scene or a monologue or something like that, figure out where you want to end up, and then start as far away from that point as possible. So I knew where I needed Manic to end up, and again, hopefully with any luck, this will kickstart a series. I don't know yet, but if it does, like, I knew where I wanted him to end up, and so to backtrack and create who he was going to be to get to that part was a lot of fun, because he is definitely an anti-hero at the beginning. He's not even necessarily that likable at first, I think, but learning as an author to balance that with some things that are going to connect us to him. So like at first you're like, wow, this guy's a jerk, but then we meet his daughter and see that relationship, like, oh, okay, he's a dad, and all right, we'll give him a chance, you know, that kind of thing. So I would say working with that particular character was a lot of fun. And then also the fight scenes. I mean, we get to this great, you know, comic book style fights with swords versus guns versus, you know, superpowers and, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's just a ball, you know, getting to come up with that kind of stuff.
Did you get to act any of it out? Did you have any friends who, in order to sort of get an idea of how it was supposed to look, you know, if you stood here and I did this, you know, sort of thing, sort of blocking it out, I guess.
I don't know if I did for the book, but we definitely did it while playing the game. Like, well, I'm going to do it. Here, stand up. I'm going to do this. And then like, wah! And then, psh! And so, can I do that? Like, yeah, 13 or less. You know, you can do that all the time. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. So I definitely remembered, I continued to do that while I was writing the book. I don't remember if I did it with any of my friends. I may have. It's entirely possible. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, in this kind of combat, there's a lot of standing up and trying to work out, like, okay, so I'm doing this, but he's got the sword, so where does, no, you can't do it like that. Oh, this way, you know. It's a lot of fun. It's absolutely a lot of fun. I have to wait till everybody's out of the house, though, because it's kind of hard to walk into my son's room and be like, I need the katana. Where'd the katana go? Oh, there it is. Because we have that kind of stuff laying around, you know. And don't break the lamp, you know. Yeah, I did. I definitely did a lot of that, though, for sure.
It's the plastic Jedi saber, right? That you've got lying somewhere in the house.
That's a couple of those.
Yeah.
We have a couple of swords. We've got a wooden sword over it. Yeah, we've got all the good stuff.
Ian, do we have no question? All right. So.
All right.
He had that very serious look on his face, so I wasn't sure if it was a question or not. So, where are you going to take OMNIHUMANS from here? You've finished book 1. Is this going to be a trilogy or a duology, you think? Or
I have notes and plans for it to go fairly deep, probably beyond 3, I think, because again, I'm drawing inspiration from 20 to 25 years worth of gaming, and I kept all that stuff, like all the stuff that I did as a game master, as a GM. I kept all those notes, and those are just outlines of, you know, stories waiting to happen. So I have extensive notes. Well, you know, I know exactly where Manic's headed. I have a pretty good idea where Malachi's headed. I know what the bigger threat to the world is going to be, which I believe is not something that's been done, or at least hasn't been done very often. So I'm looking forward to developing that. I'm really intrigued by the world that I built, and I'm hoping that wherever I take these 2 characters, I'll also be able to do some kind of spin-off stuff that will, you know, side quests. They're going to be side quest books, I think, is probably the best. That's the right word, isn't that? Side quest?
Side quest, right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely had that Blade Runner vibe or you know, that sort of cyberpunk sort of feel, that noir element to it, along with the you know, the superhero slash almost Dresden Files kind of feel to it. I really enjoyed that. I thought you did a phenomenal job reading it, writing it. I usually only read about 100 pages or so, lest I spoil somebody's book, and I did that once, and I won't do it again. So gotcha. I really can't wait to finish reading this book. This is super exciting.
It gets pretty intense. It gets dark and intense.
But I like that. You write that really, really well, and I thought that it really showed your talent as a writer, and showed a different side of you that we don't necessarily get to see in some of your young adult, and I really appreciated that. I thought that it was just really, really cool. Now, we've gotten to know you for a really long time. We've known you since Party, and it's... you know, we've always had a really good relationship. You have a good relationship as well with the other local bookstore, Changing Hands, and another phenomenal local bookstore. What is your hope with this series? Are you going to write one book a year? Or are you going to alternate between this and young adult?
That is twice now. That is a very good question. I don't know for sure. I wanted to, because as we talked about at book club, I'm not a fan of the cliffhanger ending of novels. Like, don't know, that's finished. Pick a story and then finish it. If you need to leave some threads open for book 2, that's cool, but don't leave it, you know, where like, oh, there has to be a book 2 now. That just drives me crazy. So hopefully I have done that with this book. That was my intent, was to let it be a standalone. You can read it, enjoy it, and be done with it. If that's what you want, great. I want to leave it out there for a bit and see what kind of response I get. Like, there were, to this day, there's still people, ironically, who want a sequel to Hellworld, and I'm like, that's the one book I can't have a sequel to. There is no sequel to Hellworld. Dang it. So I want to kind of see what kind of response I get, and I mean, I would love nothing more than to do, a book every 8 to 12 months. I think for this one, it's a bit takes a little bit more development, a little bit more work. It's a higher word count, than my YA tends to be. But I've also got a lot of prep work kind of already done, so I don't think it would take long to jump in and get book 2, book 3, however many books down the line, kind of in the pipeline and ready to go. So I would, probably a book a year, maybe a little less, I think. But like I said, I'm somebody who has generally no less than 3 projects going at any one time, because I don't believe in writer's block. I think that's kind of a myth, and I do believe in project block. I do believe, you get locked in one thing and you can't figure out what to do. So the solution to that, if you are a full-time author, is like, well, then I'm going to go to work on this thing. So OMNIHUMANS and the following books in the series will always kind of be on one of those burners. It just depends on which one.
Exactly. I think between you and Jen McKinley, who are here, who also writes, and 3 different series a year. Yeah, and I don't know how she does it, but you do the same sort of thing. That's really cool. Now, you decided to independently publish this book. What was that process like? What made you decide that that's the route that you really wanted to go to for this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the control issue, and that's what I think a lot of people are starting to do, this hybrid model of like trying to keep a foot in traditional and then also do some independent. I think it used to be, for the viewers who maybe don't know this, and you know this very well, not that long ago, independent publishing was like, oh, you self-published your book. Well, we don't really, it was like the worst thing you could do. And that changed in maybe 5 years. I mean, it was like light speed. Amazon came on scene, and suddenly anybody could do it, and a lot of really good writing started kind of floating to the top there, which is amazing. And I think authors, particularly those who had the experience in traditional like I did, were starting to see some of that control stuff shifting back, like, oh, I can actually have more input on my book. Like when we did, I'll give you an example. When my debut novel came out, which was Party, my editor had the kindness to send me an email and say, well, we're working on the cover. Is there anything you want to see? I'm like, I don't know. You're Random House. Do what you want. Oh, but you know what? Since you asked, you know what I hate? Oh, I hate photos of real people because then nobody can think about what they look like. So if you could do something not like that, she's like, yeah, I'll let them know. And this is what they came up with. So immediately, okay, all right, we'll just roll with that. So being able to exercise some control, it was number one. But number two, also, I think, getting an even deeper appreciation for everybody working in traditional, because now suddenly you're doing all that work yourself. Either, obviously, you know, we're still doing a lot of the editing, but getting copy editors and getting designers and getting like all the things that go into a book, and then ending up with a hardcover jacketed book and going, why are these so expensive? Oh, that's why. Like it's an endeavor to get a hardcover book out, and so I'll never, I'll always look at publishing differently as a result of this experience, and I think that's a good thing.
But I do have to say, with OMNIHUMANS, you've done a very professional job with the book. It's incredibly well edited. It's incredibly tight. The jacket design is beautiful. The book itself is incredibly well bound. I mean, a lot of self-published books, you don't get that. You know, you might get a book that looks nice, has a great jacket, but it isn't so well edited. What did you do to edit the book? What did you do to, you know, separate yourself out from, you know, some of that process so that you could write the best book that you possibly could?
Well, a lot of that, you know, as you're mentioning that, you know, I coming from traditional publishing, I wanted nobody to know the difference. I wanted people to be able to come into Poison Pen, whatever, and grab this book off the shelf and not even occur to them that it was independent, you know, which was a pretty high bar to set. Like you said, not every book turns out that way. But that was the quality of the feel of the book in your hands is hugely important. And that's something I hadn't realized until I started learning more about it. So I mean, I must have gone over this thing, I don't even know how many times myself, just in revision and then copy editing. My wife did a lot of that after I was like, threw my hands up in despair, like, there's nothing else I can do. It's perfect. No, it's not. Like, so I've still got, you know, art here with all kinds of little dog ears on it and highlighting it. And I'm like, geez, like, it doesn't matter how many times, there's always something. I think we caught everything, but I don't know. So yeah, it was just a lot of patience, a lot of beta reading, getting other author friends to take a look at it and point things out and whatever. So yeah, I'm doing you know, as an independent publisher, you're wearing 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 different hats. And that's why when people ask about it, when student writers ask about that, like, well, which direction should I go? I'm like, I don't know. Neither one of them is easy, is the thing.
Neither one of them, yeah. I mean, with traditional publishing, you've got that entire backing of that entire group, but on the other hand, you lose complete control. And a lot of writers are doing like you said, that partial model. Dana Stabenow, who's a friend of the store, has moved a lot of her stuff over into that model. You're starting to see a lot of writers, especially writers like you and her that are very established, feeling comfortable enough with the process now to be able to move into that.
Well, I think, you know, and someone like Dana, who I've met, and she's just a beautiful person and a great writer, and it makes a lot of sense, I think, for someone like her, or hopefully like me and some of the rest of us who are doing this model, because then we're deepening a relationship with the reader too. Right. You know, that's something that we're still responsible for doing when we're doing traditional publishing or legacy publishing, for sure. But there's still kind of this barrier there. And if I, you know, publish Party or Hellworld or whatever, and get a big following or a really hardcore fan group out of that, and they're like, oh, we want to see, you know, what happened the next day, and I pitch that over to Random House, and they're like, nah, not interested. Like, okay, well then, can I write it and just give it to the fans? Well, no, because we have the rights to those characters. You know, you've already done the paperwork, and you're like, wow, like, so I'm kind of stuck here. You could ask, and maybe they'll let you, but maybe they won't. They're not obligated to do that, you know. So I think being able to keep one foot in each world there is fantastic, and to launch something like OmniHumans apart from a publisher, and let's get that audience built. Let's see, if I can build an audience with it, and if so, cool. Now I get to have a one-on-one relationship with each reader in a way that I wouldn't be able to do if it had been a traditional novel. And I think that's one of the great things about it.
Well, I'm really impressed with you too. You talk about building that relationship and it being so important. I see you day in and day out on social media, really connecting with your readers. You're doing short inspirational speeches. You've got classes that you're teaching. What sort of fires do you have going on right now where people can kind of connect with you and learn from you?
That's a great question. So basically on just about, as far as I know, every social media platform out there at Tom Leveen, Leveen. As long as you spell it right, you'll find me. And like you said, I do a lot of very short form content, very easily consumed. A lot of video content on most of those platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. But I also recently started a Patreon group that is for writers who are looking to get a little bit deeper in with their writing, and I send them it's like $5 a month, and I do kind of a resource list for them that includes a book and kind of a thought of the week or whatever, something for them to think about, as well as some exercises and things like that. And then we do a bi-weekly private Zoom call so people can ask specific questions about their work and things like that, which is great. One of the worst, I won't say worst, one of the difficult parts about this era we're living in right now with the quarantines and everything is, right now I would normally be neck deep in preparing for Phoenix Fan Fusion, and I can't because it's not happening right now. And I look forward to that event every single year. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. And it's just one of the things I love every year, and now we can't, and it sucks. And one of the best parts of it is that face-to-face. It's that interaction and being able to do panels and do writing classes, which is one of my favorite things to do. I don't really want to be in a classroom with students every day. That's a different skill set. But I do love teaching as much as I can about the process and about the craft and the business as I possibly can. That's just, it's one of my favorite things to do, because I know, every day there's a new writer being born somewhere and not knowing what to do next. And I want to be there and say, this is what you do, and here's how you do it, because no one did that for me. So
I'm trying to think of the class I took from you while I was there at Fan Fusion. I thought that one was, you're pulling a lot from movies and films.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool course. It was well worth the $10 that I spent. I learned so much on the craft, and it's great because I basically am more of a professional reader than I am a professional writer. But what's really helpful is learning tricks that writers do within the craft to be able to pull more out of what you're reading and why you're reading it, and why did you do this, or why did you do X. It's so worth it. It really is. I felt like I pulled more out of that class than a semester-long English lit course.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. No, I don't get started about that. No. And it never ends. I'm still learning. I'll every once in a while catch something on YouTube or somewhere else about screenwriting or something like that. That I'm just like, wait, what? That I've never heard of before. I can't wait to put that to work in my next book. Different outlining methods and ways of structuring story across different platforms and genres. You never stop. I don't think.
No, you really don't. What is something that you've recently learned that you'd really like to apply?
I'm working this into a couple of different outlines that I'm working on right now. It's called, and there's a book, I can't remember the book, so I'm sorry. Maybe if somebody's watching, they might remember, but it's called Four Corner Opposition. And there's a video I saw on YouTube breaking down Batman Begins with Four Corner Opposition. And you've got Batman, and then you've got Falcone, and then you've got Ra's al Ghul, and then you've got, there's two mobsters, right? Oh, Scarecrow. I'm sorry, Scarecrow. So you kind of put them in a grid, and Batman is, against all three of them, and you can see each one of them kind of gets their own act, and they're in conflict with each other. which I never hadn't really thought about. But as soon as you say it, like, oh yeah, like they're not buddies. They are all in conflict with one another. That's amazing. And the point that this video makes, that I believe is in the book that they're referencing, that I can't remember, is that they are all after the same thing, but they have different values. And it's their values that are in conflict. And I was like, that's one of the reasons that this movie was so successful, and that it just hit on this deeper level. And you wouldn't know it probably until somebody pointed it out. And I just fell in love with that. So I've got this whole whiteboard, like four-corner opposition, and all right, and inventing new things to put into a story that I maybe wouldn't have done a year ago or 6 months ago. So yeah, always learning about stuff like that.
That is really cool. Now, what are you reading? What are you reading right now that has really been exciting you? Anything?
Yeah, a couple. So on the nonfiction side, I'm reading Donald Miller's Story Brand, which I got about halfway through it a few months ago and got distracted, so I'm picking it back up again. One of the reasons I put it down is there was so much incredible information about storytelling that I had to stop and like let it filter through a little bit. So restarting that one, it's a phenomenal resource for writers and marketers of any kind. Well worth looking into. And then fiction, right now I am reading Patient Zero by Jonathan Mayberry. And I'm fascinated by that one. I don't have it handy, the first paragraph, the first couple lines of that book are flawless, like masterclass in how to open a novel, particularly a horror story. And one of the things I don't want to use the word struggling, but one of the things I'm fascinated by is he has a first-person character, Joe Ledger, telling the story, and then he has third-person sections, which, like, to me, I'm like, wait, you're not allowed to do that. But you don't tell Jonathan Mayberry he's not allowed to do something, so I'm just rolling with it. But it's illustrating to me, like, oh, that's something I could do. Okay, all right, because I haven't tried. That's a format I have not tried, and seeing how effortlessly he does it, like, okay, this is something I will keep in mind for later. Thank you, Jonathan Mayberry.
But you threw in a lot of what Mayberry does so well, which was straddling multiple genres. So the Joe Ledgers are also a great thriller series, as well as being a horror series. OMNIHUMANS is very much a thriller, on top of being urban fantasy. So you've straddled both of those worlds, just like he's done within those.
Thank you. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Where will it be shelved? Because that's one of the things that worries me about writing something like that. It's like, oh no, where? Because as a writer, and I don't know if apprentice writers know this yet, but like you have to be thinking in those terms. Like when this book comes out, there's only so many shelves that can be on. Where is this going to be shelved? So where are you guys putting it?
So we're putting it with science fiction and fantasy because it's closer to your other books. So in proximity of the store, so it's still fairly easy to find. However, there are authors like Mayberry and Preston Child, especially the early relics, or Michael Crichton with some of his, that it could be shelved in science fiction, but it could also be shelved within thriller. And the thriller readers are just as likely to pick it up and read it. Preston Child, I think part of their success was the fact that bookstores were putting them in regular fiction as well as science fiction fantasy, because that, Pendergast character, and sort of the X-Files sort of style of mysteries that they follow, it could go either way. Same with F. Paul Wilson with his Repairman Jack. And even Jim Butcher. We've got a lot of people who don't read science fiction fantasy, but will read Jim Butcher. So
I love that. It makes it difficult to pitch, because what's this about? Like, well, what are you reading? What do you like? Because I can tailor my pitch based on what it is that you like to read. I don't want to,
exactly.
Do it the step there, but okay, that's good to know. I'm just curious.
All right. Well, Tom, we've got a science fiction book club to start here in just a few minutes. What time is it? Yeah, about 15 minutes there. So awesome. We're gonna say goodbye to you on this piece.
Where can people order the book?
Well, that's my question for you, Tom. where can people find you? Where can people pick up your books? And you know, anything else that you'd like to share with us?
All right, sure. So I'm at my website is tomleveen.com, and that should take you right to a book landing page where you can pick up OMNIHUMANS. I do prefer, of course, people to patronize our local independent bookstores if at all possible. That would be super cool because we need you guys so very much. I need you. So yeah, try to do that as much as possible. So tomleveen.com, again, across all social media at Tom Leveen. I do have every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I do a Facebook Live on my author website, or my author Facebook, which is facebook.com/author Tom Leveen. And it's really fun. We critique the first page of one of my books, whether it's been published or not. And then we have a couple of other unpublished authors generally submit their work, and we read those and critique those live on the air. And sometimes I bring in some guest authors to do that, so that's a lot of fun. So you should look into that. But otherwise, yeah. Oh, did you know about Party? Did I tell you about Party?
No, you haven't told us about Party.
So I had this very weird experience about 2 months ago now when the lockdown sort of very first happened. And long story short, I got Party optioned by a guy in LA, and they just found a director. So with a little luck, maybe in a year or two, we will have a Party feature film. Fingers crossed. You never know with this kind of stuff. That would be super cool.
That is really exciting. Hollywood's a fickle business. You never know what's going to happen. So, you know, we're rooting for you, Tom. We hope that gets turned into a movie. You know,
Thank you.
It could turn into a buddy cop thriller.
I like the story, but get rid of the kids. Sure.
You never know. You never know based off the iterations that happen. But, you know, I'm rooting for it to get...
Thank you. Me too. I've had several conversations with the guy, and we really connected well. It's a very small company, which I think is great. I think that means our chances of it actually getting produced go up rather than down if it's a smaller company. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out. Hope so.
That is awesome. That is so cool, Tom. Well, congratulations. Release of the book, OMNIHUMANS. Wherever you can get the book, please do so. Support Tom. We love him to death. We want him to continue writing. We want to continue seeing him here at the Poison Pen. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you later. Sorry about that.